Welcome back, everybody, to the School Leadership Show. This is Mike Dowdy, your host and creator and founder of this podcast, to be clear. So I'm here today with a very special guest, a friend of mine, Raleigh Dewan. Hi, Raleigh. How are you?
Hi, doctor. I'm doing well.
Well, Raleigh's not quite a household name in the circles of school leadership, but yeah, we're working on it. So the reason I have Raleigh on for a couple of reasons. First of all, he's got a very cool story, and he's a fellow Coca-Cola scholar. I was a Coke scholar in 1993. And Raleigh, what year were you?
2019. So very sort close after him.
Yeah,
Very close after.
super
Very close.
close. You can whisper past me. Um, yeah, actually, a year before my daughter got it. So yeah, there we go. So Raleigh's here just because he has a super cool story, and I wanted to hear about it, and then maybe get you to riff a little bit about, what advice you might have for aspiring and practicing school administrators. And then the third thing, we're going to get to the meat of the conversation, which I'm not even going to tease right now. So Raleigh, so t people meeting you for the first time, who's Raleigh Dewan? What's he working on? How's he changing the world? Go.
Fantastic. Well, I appreciate being invited on. I know Mike talked to me about this at our Coke Scholar kind of summit, and I was very interested. So currently, I'm the managing partner for the NB Group, and essentially, it's a holding company that has a couple different portfolio companies. One of which is a socially conscious tea company, the other of which is a biomedical device company. The basic thesis of all of my different companies are how do we use companies, social impact companies, to impact people. So for me, having a socially conscious tea company that fights human trafficking is called the Sister Shack tea company. And a biomedical device is a self-stabilizing assisted eating device for people that have Parkinson's or hand tremors so they can regain the agency, autonomy, and dignity and be able to feed themselves and other things. And both of those had kind of personal stories for me from my own family, people being impacted by Parkinson's and by human trafficking. And it inspired me to learn more about these different problems, both neurological diseases and the atrocity of modern day slavery happening in our own country. And while my generation, Gen Z, is very well known for just posting about it on social media, I wanted to really get into the meat of the problem and find a solution. And that kind of presented itself in these different companies. So I've been excited, and I have been the beneficiary rather of amazing education throughout my very short life so far. But I've been able to see just how much amazing impact, what an amazing impact educators can have on students. And I probably bet my kindergarten teacher didn't think I'd amount to much of how much trouble I gave her. But I had some incredible teachers and educators and administrators who poured into me, even in high school, that really set my mind into I could change the world. I could impact the world. I could use my gifts for a positive reason. And I just really needed somebody to believe in me, but not just the prototypical go out there and do it, do the best, but really giving me, I would say, almost the benefit of taking me seriously. Kind of say, oh, pat me on the head and say, go off and do it. But to say, okay, well, if I want to help you, here are the big detractors. Here are the big bumps. And let's figure out a plan forward. And that's why I think I'm excited to talk about of what my story is and how education and amazing educators have really been the driving force behind what I've been able to accomplish. People say, well, how are you able to do all this? And it really was my family and my network, a lot of which was educators in college and high school believing in me and investing in me.
So let's just pause there for a second because we got to go back. Timeout, two remaining. That was an American football reference for you, Raleigh. I just make sure you're right. So if you didn't catch that, so Raleigh was one, people win Coca-Cola scholarships when they are seniors in high school. Okay. So I think we should roll this math back a little bit
Mm-hmm.
for people. So that would have been 2019 for you. So that makes you how old right now?
I am the ripe old age of 23. Spiritually, I feel more like an 85-year-old,
Well,
but birth certificate says 23.
yeah, you quote poetry like an 85-year-old. So anyway, it's an affliction we both have. So no, but I think that's important for people to know. So, you're 23 years old. You've already started two companies, and you are certainly on the process on the path toward changing the world, if not already. So, can you, if you were going to give, if you think back to your either K-12, maybe your high school career, maybe your college career, and you think about interactions that you had with school administrators or people that you observed in leadership positions, did anything stand out to you as being, wow, that person seems like a really good assistant principal, or that person is definitely is nailing it as an associate dean? I mean, did anything, because I'm curious about that from your perspective.
Yeah, that's a very good question. I had a unique educational background in terms of I was a special needs student. So early 2000s, I am again benefited from there actually being LEAP and special needs programs when I was a child versus when my parents was going through it. Nothing like that existed in small town Arkansas. And so I was able to see a lot of, I had a lot of, let's say, access to the principal and assistant principals and kind of these deans of these specialized programs as they were getting off the ground. And they go into, I had the privilege of going to these private schools, being able to have a much smaller class size environment. And so for me, I can remember especially in, I guess it was sixth grade, the principal for, they call it, the elementary school, essentially K through six. And I became very good friends because I was often being sent to her office for disciplinary reasons. I was immensely talkative, very loud. Didn't have, even though I had these big ears, I couldn't quite hear how loud I was being in the classroom. And I was precocious enough to have good grades, and I felt bored in a lot of ways, which led to me being quite belligerent sometimes, to being overactive. And instead of just being well, this is a problem child, let me just discipline the heck out of him and school suspension, the assistant principal for my lower grade when I was in kind of this turning point, about to go into middle school, become a real boy, so to speak, make a Pinocchio out of me. And instead of just saying, well, this is a troubled child, we got to call the parents, took the time to understand me, hear my story, youngest of three boys, having these different learning disabilities, learning differences, and the fact that I wasn't feeling very engaged in the classroom, I wasn't feeling challenged, and that's what led to me being a class clown, so to speak. And so because of that, they put me in these specialized classes that allowed me to be engaged, to be developed, to be challenged superbly, where I was no longer a class clown because I was just trying to keep up with all the older kids. And that was really a changing point in my life because it said I wasn't just this class clown, funny kid, athlete, but that I had the intellectual capabilities to do things and that I could be taken seriously. And so that was a big part of me becoming open, taking on more responsibility and trying to kind of level up, so to speak. And then in high school, I had an amazing principal. And what I loved about my high school was they involved students within the administrative aspect of the school. So we had something called prefecture. And again, this was not students making decisions, but providing input on why decisions were being made. And the prefecture was a board of students who would be brought in to to hear the different disciplinary boards, different things that would come up for education, curricula, parent boards, etc. And they'd be able to speak on the students' behalf, but also be able to listen to how decisions were made, to listen to how are our administrators dealing with troubles in different grades. How was the curriculum changing? What were students and parents wanting as the college preparatory process was kind of changing, as the admission process was changing? And that was really amazing for me because, again, these administrators didn't just pat me on the head and say, oh, you're doing great. Just sit there and listen. They gave me the benefit of actually putting me up to the task to say, no, I want you to contribute. I want you to study. Here is our charter documents. Read through how this board meeting will work. Understand how we have to view disciplinary matters. Yeah, they're a good kid, but we have precedent to uphold. And we don't view a suspension as a purely disciplinary action, but as a way to get them back on track. And that to me was a truly impactful experience, not just for my own educational abilities, but to get out of this mindset as a young person that it's just me. It's how I perceive the world. That's the only thing that matters. But to get into the perspective of, well, what are all the other cogs in this machine? What are all the other perspectives, inputs, considerations that need to be made? And I think, unfortunately, for a lot of students and parents, they get so silent and thinking, it's just my student, it's just my life. And they don't realize how much is responsible and on the plate of an administrator. And so that was a really big thing for me. And so having those administrators really, again, giving me the benefit of treating me like an adult. I really didn't deserve it, truly, but that encouraged me to step up to the plate. And I had a much better appreciation for all of the different problems and all the different kind of constraints that they had to deal with, which made it much more impactful for me to understand and try to make their lives easier on the student front. But also was impactful for me when I got to college and began to work, being a TA, being a tutor, being involved in student government, being a student trustee, and working with the different curriculums, et cetera. And that, again, for me, made a massive impact in my life and created an eternal gratitude to administrators. And as we all know, people who are not very often given the appreciation they deserve for the incredible work that they do.
So it's so fantastic when people's experiences confirm what we think we know from research. And you ticked off three of the big ones. An adult taking an interest in and developing a positive and healthy relationship with a student. Bam, nailed it. Student voice experience being able to be used and listened to in a meaningful way. And then I don't want to use the word meaningful again, but it is a word, meaningful involvement in what's going on in the school. So, you're fortunate. You had a couple, it sounds like you had several folks throughout your career in leadership roles who were able to support your growth in a way that shaped who you are now.
Oh, definitely. And that's what I always say when, I've been very fortunate to be get some different awards for business and in college. And everyone always talks and say, well, how are you able to do this? And it's not false humility at all when I'm saying I, am the culmination of a tribe of people, my family, my mentors, my school, my education. And in being a young person, a lot of my mentorship has come from my teachers. If you think about, just recently graduated from college, most of my life until now has been spent in educational environments. I spend more time with my teachers than I do with my parents, family, etc. So being able to benefit from that and understand how much of an impact those educators made on me is essential. And the more I think about now as I'm entering a new phase of life and being able to think about these different things, it's trying to figure out how can I take those lessons and those things that educators did incredibly for me and pass that on to the next generation in terms of advising my friends who are in high school and trying to move on, or my friends in college who are still in that educational environment. And it's interesting, a lot of my really good friends are still educators in college and in high school and during Christmas breaks, and they've been able to catch up with them. And it's amazing to see, like you said, how much those meaningful relationships with educators can truly last a lifetime and not just be something that ends when the school period or the educational period ends. I'm sure we've all seen there was a very viral video a couple of years ago with this very English footballer, so it's soccer for all the Americans, and he had done quite well, and he was in the stadium, and he was there for some promotional shoot, and they brought in one of his teachers from second grade, and you see this, this man who is an amazing professional soccer player, just reverted childhood, this kind of childlike view in his eyes. And he said, I believe, Ms. Bergen, they told me you were dead. And he couldn't believe that this man was alive. This man in second grade changed his life. And you see this amazing emotional reaction. And that, I think, is so representative of how much of an impact amazing educators can have in our lives, not just in this stage where I'm 23 and a semester away from when I was still in college, but even somebody like that who was a real man in their 40s who was able to see how much of a difference that man made in his life as an educator.
So cool. All right, so let's get after it. So one of the reasons I asked Raleigh on today, certainly because of his fantastic story, which we could spend, hours talking about your story and going through it, and even a lot of the things that you've taught me already as someone who is at the other end of his career. So, but one of the things that I wanted to ask you for help about is that it has come time for me to think about doing a newsletter. So, and Raleigh has agreed to help me on that endeavor, among other things. And we have been going back and forth in this not really too much, but we started the conversation around the name of the newsletter. And I thought it might be fun for, I don't know, us to suggest a few of them and then maybe have a candid session of feedback, shall we say. This isn't going to be brainstorming in the sense that no one is wrong, because I am sure I'm going to suggest some things that are just flat out terrible. So and why are you here? Right. Raleigh's already started two businesses and I am business dumb. Like that is not my area. So here we go. We're going to play to our strengths. Now, do we have any structure for this? I didn't think through it. Am I just going to put them out there and you're going to take whacks at them, or what do you want to do?
I like that. Actually, let's start there. Do a little bit of like almost a classic, roast style of these different ideas. Oh, sorry, a constructive boardroom, constructive
right.
criticism. Sorry.
Here we go.
Good. And we'll go from there.
So here we go. I went first to things that I don't know, it sort of popped into my head, but like that from other places. So here's my first one. Word by word and line by line. So that, for people my age, might recognize as part of a lyric from Young MC's song Principal's Office. She read it. That's the part of the song where the teacher takes the kid's note and he says she read it word by word and line by line. Everybody in the class was a friend of mine, something like that. But look, word by word and line by line. Go. What do you think about that?
I really love that backstory. And I think, like anything, we are literature lovers. I love a good illusion. Nothing better than a good illusion. And so I really do like that. Although one thing I would say is, again, we're looking at our audience. A lot of young people are getting into education. And though I consider myself really cultured, I have not had the pleasure of being enlightened to Young MC's beautiful Principal's Office. But it could be a thing, again, when one is relying upon the illusion for the impact, that can be a difficulty. Although I would say I would love to have word by word and line by line, if not the name of the newsletter, be a segment, a recurring segment of the newsletter, whether perhaps it is different things that are going on in education, whether it's how different bills are affecting and impacting education, or how different articles in higher education are coming out to kind of allow these administrators to be on the breaking edge, so to speak. I think word by word and line by line feels like an amazing segment title at the least.
Okay. All right. Well, okay. We'll park that one for a second. Oh, and by the way, I didn't even give any context. So, like, what kind of newsletter? So the idea of this newsletter would be for people who listen to this show. So, aspiring, practicing school leaders from all levels, all places, all manner of experience. And by the way, where does this podcast find you today? Where are you?
I am right now in the beautiful Austin, Texas. And I know it's very popular now, but I have the unique privilege of actually being born and raised on site. I'm not a transplant. I'm one of the few, the proud, the brave who know. People say, "Where are you from?" I go, "I'm actually from here. I didn't move from New York, Chicago, LA, California." So we're right now in beautiful Lake Austin.
Well, and I'm looking, and let's see, it's 5:20 Eastern at the very end of December. We're recording this on New Year's Eve day. And it's sunny behind you, Central Time, and I'm certain it's dark outside here. I'm in the basement, I can't tell. So anyway, all right. So word by word, line by line, maybe keep it. Okay. So how about this one? Do you remember T.S. Eliot's poem, The Hollow Men? That's the way the world ends, not with a bang, but with a whimper, right? So what if it was not with a bang?
Not with a bang.
I don't even like it. Okay,
I will say there are some times where I remember I'm a writer, and so I write a lot of poetry and short stories and novels. And I remember I was doing this exercise where I was just writing, what's the vehicle title? And I was like, I think I'm going about this wrong, where I'm thinking about the title instead of the actual story. But that's one of those I think that'd be a cool title. But what does it really mean?
Wasn't
Doesn't
really me.
really
Okay.
have.
All right, here's the next one. How about this one? It from one of my other favorite T.S. Eliot poems, Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock, opening line, let us go then. It finishes, let us go
Ooh,
then, you and I. But I was thinking, let us go then.
oh, then. Let us go then. I kind of like that.
It sounds nice, but is it titly? I don't know. It doesn't.
It is a little bit tidily, and I think one thing that I have seen in the now again, most of my newsletters have been business ones. So it's either executive summary, literally is one, or I have one that's called operator's guide, where it's all COOs, etc. Of course, as you can imagine, business people are not especially creative. They kind of just say things as they are. So I think we have a unique opportunity to be able to. We have such educated people who are interesting, well read, able to appeal to some of these different things. So I do like the idea of having these kinds of illusions, a little bit more culture to it. Maybe perhaps not pinky up all the way. One thing that will kind of prick the ears a little
Like,
bit.
icky
Not
part
full
way
on
up.
ascot.
All right. How about
Not
this
full
one?
on
How about
ascot.
okay,
But
wait. Okay, all right, here we go. How about once more unto the breach,
reach, dear friends. There we go.
dear
Well,
friends.
as long as it is required reading in middle school, I think it'll be good. Teachers, no need to even teach class anymore. Just play the podcast and then have an AI read the newsletter out loud. The kids will learn far more than they need to, and in any kind of book.
The
Imagine
charge
that.
of the light brigade. Okay, I really feel like those are going to land for absolutely no one. All right, so I'm done with my literature ones. So then I started thinking, actually, this was my wife's idea because I get picked on a lot when we play cards and things because I'm very competitive. I talk a lot of trash, but apparently I have some phrases that I just use over and over again
Uh
that
huh.
annoy other people. I don't know what they're talking about, but that's what my wife said. She's like, "What are some of the things you kind of say over and over again at work?" And one of them, and is is a phrase that I often use when I'm having unpleasant conversations with
Mm.
people. And I will often, if I get the sense that they're not really internalizing what I am saying, I will say, "Let me be clear,"
Mm.
and then say what I'm gonna
Yeah.
say. So thoughts on that one?
I do like the idea of what are these go-to phrases. Some might even call them catchphrases. Let me
Yes,
be
some
clear.
might.
Some might say. Um, and I like the idea of having catchphrases, and I especially like the idea of having, I don't know if perhaps the right term is the jargon of higher education, but having those phrases that are routinely used in the trenches. Because while I know the doctor is immensely enlightened when it comes to all different kinds of leadership theories, and they are important, I, for one, can sometimes be a little bit bored of all the generic, high level, abstract leadership talk. At a certain point, let's get down in the trenches. Let's get down to business, as Mulan might say, to defeat the Huns. But regardless, being able to talk about things that are actually on the tactical basis of what's happening on the day to day, what's happening in these school systems, I like. Because I believe the purpose of this newsletter is to, of course, develop leadership with aspiring leaders in the educational system, but also to provide them with what they need to, on a day to day level, make the most, progress, and deliver the best outcomes to their students, to their districts, and to their overall system. I kind of like this idea.
Let
Your
me be
wife, of
clear.
course, better half. Let me be clear.
Let me be clear. I married up. I outkicked my coverage for sure. She has yet to come on the podcast. I can't talk her into it. Anyway, all right. So my next one, I can't take full credit for it. I stole it from one of my colleagues who uses it all the time, and I love it. It's it kind of when somebody says something that's just blatantly wrong, and you need to correct them or as gently as possible. It's actually from my friend Bridget, who says somebody will say something and she'll take a pause and she'll say, well, turns out, and then give the truth or the accurate, whatever it is. So turns out we can't just suspend kids whenever we want, or turns out it's not okay to be racist in K-12 education anymore. Like, so things like that. So what do you think about turns out? Turns out.
I I kind of like that. I like
You're
that
liking
turn sound.
everything. The whole point of this was for you to hammer on the bad ideas, and you can't like everything.
Yeah, that's true. I think I forget. I think you also had a phrase from a friend that was, "Well, that's an idea."
Yes, I love that one. Oh,
I think that is also a funny one to add. Well, that's an idea.
I'm putting that on the
Um,
list. Well,
that's a there we go.
that's
That's in that list.
an idea. That's a great one. I use that one all the time, especially with my daughter who is nearly your age. Well, that's an
Nice.
idea.
Well, that's an idea
Okay,
exactly.
okay, so we got turns out. The next one, this one came directly from Teresa, my bride. She
Huh.
said that I always say to people, I'm going to need you to, and then whatever it is. Like, I'm going to
Ooh.
need you to. It's a little bit of Office Spacey,
Mm-hmm.
when
Oh, good
Lumberg,
movie.
what I'm going to need you to come in
Me
on
too.
Sunday. Well, it's sort of like that. I'm going to need you to get that done, or I'm going to need you
Yeah.
to go over there, whatever. Thoughts on that one? No, remember, this is audio format. You can't just shake your head and make funny
This is this
faces.
is this is stuff I'll have to do the audio version. You know, I'm gonna need you to give me another one.
Well done. Okay. All right. Here it is. Another one that I say all the time, and it comes from my terrestrial radio days when
Ooh.
we would be time for a mic break after the song, and one of us would say, "And we're back."
And we're back. You know, I think that's another good one. But I will say, Mike, some of these things, again, it reminds me of the idea when I would just make up titles for books that sounded cool and like make up covers of these are great names. But to a large degree, and again, there's a fine line to play. We don't want it to be too specific, but we also don't want it to be too abstract. And some of these, I'm feeling like, I'm gonna need you to that could be the title for so many newsletters, right? I mean, that could be the newsletter for RNs across America. That could be the newsletter for, kitchen hands. Although I would say, and in the spirit of just good titles, an amazing title for a newsletter for chefs, people, in the kitchen, etc. Would be, I'm sure you can guess it, Herd Chef.
Yeah, Herd Chef. That's a good one.
Herd Chef.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be a great one?
Yeah.
Coincidentally, that is also what I say to people instead of bless you after a sneeze.
You say Herd Chef?
I say herd chef, and it's a very polarizing remark.
I can see.
It either
I can
lands
see that.
exceedingly well, or somebody's like, "What?"
Well,
And then, as you know, you can't explain a joke. You can't explain it.
right. Isn't that the mark of good humor, though? It either lands or it doesn't. There's no half measures.
You see, and that's what I think is wrong with this country. We have become a country of luke. We have become a country of lukewarm people. Just doing
Lukewarm.
lukewarm things.
We're not.
Take a risk, take a
Nope.
stand, live for something. Whether
Yeah,
it's
we're not. No.
education in the
Well,
kitchen,
and I
how you
and
make
I
a
think
grilled cheese, whether you're
well,
doing counterclockwise or clockwise rotations, take a stand. No wishy washy.
no wishy washy. Oh, remember that story from when you were a little kid learning to read, Mrs. Wishy Washy? No.
Interestingly enough, I could not. I was behind. I did not learn to read until I was like 8. They thought I was going to be, you know, digging ditches the rest of my life. Apparently, I don't read phonetically, so I did not remember that. Although I do remember, I pretty much learned to read by watching Star Wars with the
The
what
closed
do they call them?
captioning.
Closed captioning on. I was like, wait a
Mhm.
second, that sounds like this. Which I think
Nice.
I've heard is also an amazing way to learn foreign languages.
Yes. Yep.
Watch a show you really know and love, whether it's The
Yep.
Sopranos or Beef. Talking about Herd Chef. Put on the Italian, Spanish, French, or if you're like me and you like foreign stuff, keep it in the original language. Don't turn on the voiceovers. It doesn't even match up with the lips anyway. Just get over your Americanness. Listen to it,
Okay.
and then
All right.
turn on the closed captioning. And you kind of learn some French,
That's
watch
great.
Lupin,
Let's,
something like
oh,
that.
okay. Nous pouvons continuer, s'il vous plaît. So listen, we have okay, we're talking about going off. We're off the rails completely. So the other one I had, the last one, and I say this all the time about playing cards because some people get sick of playing. We play this game
Mhm.
called Euchre, which is kind of a Midwest card game. And I always say, people are like, oh, I don't want to play anymore. And I'll say something like, it never gets old.
It never gets old. Yeah, I'm gonna say that one. That one got kind of old.
That's old. All right. Well, here, okay, that's all
You
I
know,
have. So yes.
you know what, I was just thinking of it, and I apologize. I am not the best at this, but is this perhaps too on the nose? Tell me if this is too Rudolph. School's in session.
Ooh.
Isn't that nice? Because, here's something that I think is so unfortunate about so many systems in America, but especially the education system. You educators, you administrators are constantly having to figure out how do we best educate children and keep this system up. If your whole day is constantly about other people's learning, and when your own learnings are often regulated for certifications, et cetera, wouldn't it be fun to be able to have something that allows you to re-spark the curiosity, that love and passion of learning that got you into education in the first place? And so often, you are the ones having to deal with the lesson plans. You're the ones having to update those PowerPoint decks from the last teacher that haven't been changed in 20 years. You are the ones having to deal with new regulations, new etc. for the new ESL programs or whatever it might be. Why don't you just sit back, relax, and enjoy now that school's in session and let the doctor, Mike Dowdy, tell you what you need to know,
So
to become a better leader and to
see,
prepare you to take those steps in your career to
I
not just help educate
ah,
yourself, but help yourself.
I
That's
really
all
wanted
I'm saying.
to I was really looking to not like any of your ideas. That's kind of that was my mindset coming in.
Are
But
you
that one
sure we're not related? My family does the exact same thing.
so but seriously, I kind of like that one because it does have sort of a double layer to it because school's in session, meaning, you know, hopefully the content in the newsletter will help you keep running your school if
Cool.
that's what you're
Mm-hmm.
doing, but it will also allow you to quote unquote be in school and learn. So, all right, now here's what we're gonna do. Here's what I'll put out there. So, my email is in the show notes. So, if anybody wants to email me any thoughts on any of these ideas or other ones, and if we pick yours, well, you get the newsletter for free for the rest of your life
I love it.
if we
I'll
end up
also say
charging
this.
for it.
I also say this. If there are any educators out there who like tea, I will do a special deal for Sister Shack tea. You can go to sistershack.com. We'll put it in the show notes. But you use the code school leadership and you will get 25% off as my way of showing all the love for educators. But please do let us know if you like any of these ideas or even new ideas. Again, this is about helping you. So we want input. And also, don't just tell us about the names you would want. What are the different things you would like to see? What would be valuable to you, whether it's in a newsletter or more of a kind of, monthly video? Mike has been talking about putting some of his amazing presentations online. Tell us some of the things that would be really valuable to you as you go through the day to day and think about how are you going to accomplish what you need to accomplish in 2024 and how can we help at the School Leadership Podcast?
I love it. Raleigh Dewan, a 2019 Coca-Cola Scholar. Woo! Go Coke Scholars. Uh, owns
Refreshing the
two
world. Refreshing the world, baby.
refreshing the world one business at a time. Now you're at two. Thanks, Raleigh, so much for joining me. Your story's fantastic, and I know we went through it at light speed there. So that was that. Did you learn that while watching Star Wars too?
Well, I think that was Star Trek, right?
Wait,
Beam
what
me
was
up,
Star
Scotty.
Wars? Hyper?
Beam me
No.
up, Scotty. I think it was Hyperdrive. Yeah.
Yeah, it was hyperdrive, right? Oh man, I'm
And then
mixing
you
up
have
my
Hyperdrive.
sci-fi metaphors.
It's
All right,
okay. It's okay.
it's okay. So the bottom line is, Raleigh, thank you. We may go deeper at some point on your background and um, kind of what else you're working on because I do find your story absolutely fascinating, and I appreciate your help with this project and your willingness to participate in this podcast. And I honestly, I will be. I'm wondering if anybody makes it all the way to the end of this. Like
It'll
at
be
some point, it
interesting.
was just like, what is he even doing? But we'll see.
And if they did, they will now know how to get some amazing tea and to get the newsletter for life, or maybe some Dr. Dowdy merch. And if you are still listening, let me say from the bottom of my heart, thank you. Again, educators are never shown the appreciation they deserve. And while I have had the privilege of being featured in some news outlets, I can confidently say my story would not be possible without the educators who made and administrators who made an amazing impact in my life. And that's to say, any credit that I get, any success or fame that I get, any success that your students get, do not be afraid of knowing that that success is also partially yours because you invested in something the same way that a hedge fund or a firm invests in something. You invested in the most powerful and best ROI resource opportunity we have on this planet. Students, the young people, our future. Young just like you, doctor. Young just like you.
Yeah, well, and thank you. Well said, Raleigh. I couldn't have said it better myself. And less to say, uh, I believe the children are our future. We need to teach them well and let them lead the way.
There we go. Wow. Wow. That should be a song.
Yeah, that's a great idea. All right, that's it. We're shutting this down. It was good. Good times.
I love it. Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Doctor.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the School Leadership Show, a podcast for aspiring and practicing school leaders. Send your comments, questions, and show ideas to me, Mike, at schoolleadershipshow.com. And please consider rating the podcast in iTunes and leaving a comment. And definitely pass the show along to your colleagues.